AskReddit by Dr. Fetus RN. Would limiting the age of the president to 65 be something you'd support? Why or why not? Any way you cut it, a shitty system will produce shitty politicians. Ranked choice voting, in my opinion, is the law that would best reform our political entire system. Congress can set its own salary, its own hours, and their length of term. No wonder their performance is terrible. They work practically half the year when they should really work like the rest of us. They should get to terms maximum. Being in charge of your own salary should be obviously a bad idea. And how about a max age for Congress, since they clearly can't take the hint? They should not be able to purchase stock. And these campaign text messages and direct mailers should be made illegal. If I could be king for a day. There are some senior politicians who are substantially older than 65 who are incredibly sharp and seriously paying attention to the concerns of their constituents. There are politicians and justices under 65 who are completely out of touch and prioritizing their own interests. So I don't think capping age will make any kind of meaningful change. The bigger issues are that the current two-party system, electoral college, gerrymandered districts, and constraints on voting rights in black and low-income communities have resulted in politicians who are not elected by the population majority. On top of people in office who don't represent the majority, the two-party system lowers the quality of the available candidates, which in turn lowers voter turnout because neither option are particularly appealing. I think something like France has, where all politicians are in the same primary and then. Why stop at the presidency? How about for all elected officials? More importantly, the unelected officials. I love WG, but 80s and 90s is too ducking old to be on the Supreme Court. I think the US should implement a ranked choice voting system. I think that will have a much bigger impact on our political system. This concept is carrying more and more weight with me lately. My beef with presidential elections is that by the time I get any say, Pennsylvania, all I get to do is pick which is the lesser of two evils, a binary decision laid in front of me. The president sets the precedent. 65 is when it's time for people to retire. Sit down, make room, live out your days in peace. Set that tone for the American people. Agreed. If the average American is expected to retire around 65, why not the president? Yes, absolutely. Both Joe Biden and Donald Trump are way too old to be president. So was Reagan when he ran 40+ years ago. Hell, I'd even go further and cap the ages for all elected officials at 65. At 69 years 348 days old, Reagan was the oldest president ever elected when he won. Trump broke that by almost a year when he was elected at 70 years 220 days old. Then Biden obliterated that when he was elected at 78 years 61 days old. We're trending in the wrong direction with this. Yeah. Even arguments about mental fitness aside, I think we should limit to candidates who would at least be reasonably expected to spend a couple decades in whatever world they create. Edit, by the Teats of Thor. This was apparently the most upvoted comment on the 9th of June of 2022. Reddit sent me a little badge over it. I like your reasoning. All politicians should fuck off the second they hit retirement age. Those who would hit it during their term shouldn't be allowed to run for office. Isn't the retirement age 72 now? I feel like I saw that somewhere. Ninja Edit, it's 67. It'll probably be like 80 by the time I retire. Yes, I would. And if you need to know why, just look at Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and Dianne Feinstein, to name a few. This country has way too many geriatrics running it. I would think Ole Chucky Grassley would set a precedent for both age and term limits, but that's none of my business. I don't see how we could determine that 65 is the magic number for such a cutoff. People age at different rates. There are folks with dementia in their 40s and some 90 years olds are still sharp as a needle. The better question to discuss is how to fix the way the executive is chosen. Is there a way to do this that would tend to yield better executives and stop putting partisan hacks in office? Thank you. I get the concerns about too long careers, health issues and not keeping up with the times, but making a sweeping cut-off just sounds like an old people sucker need to just retire and get out of the way attitude, which I don't like. It needs to be a case-by-case thing. I am going to be the unpopular opinion here. I think having an age limit really does take away experienced candidates who have dedicated their lives to public service. While the majority of those people don't actually run for office, I think we do underplay how important experience and wisdom is important for a leader. Nelson Mandela was 75 when he was elected president. I have had professors in college who were so intelligent, compassionate, and overall good people who were over the age of 65. I know that the majority of people who run for president or who are in politics don't fit that narrative, but I think it's still important to keep that door open. Appreciate your voice of reason here. 65 is not that old. Feels like something voters should be able to decide for themselves. I'm not American and don't have a president. This question I imagine assumes everyone is, but you're right. Why are you limiting democracy? What other limits are you suggesting should be put on if you're going to put this one on? Maximum wealth? Minimum education? Number of children? People can already choose how old they want their leader to be with their votes. We need more politicians who actually want to improve the systems we have rather than line their own pockets with money. We fucking can't though, because the two candidates that actually mean much in the elections suck. I don't care about age, only cognitive ability. There are plenty of 65 plus who are mentally sharp and carry a wealth of experience. I would maybe support cognitive exams for all candidates, but the process could easily be corrupted. Ultimately, I think voters should be able to vote for whoever they choose, and make their own determination about mental fitness. And candidates ought to do the right thing and step down if their mental abilities have been compromised. Yeah, this seems like it would be a very bizarre law to pass. If you don't like someone who's over 65, don't vote for them. Dems could have voted for Kamala, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Booker, Yang, but they didn't. They voted for Biden. This means either Reddit youngsters do not reflect the American people and or that we have some hypocrites in the thread. Now I just want term limits across the board. I don't like old people making decisions that play out over decades, but I also don't like saying somebody can't do something strictly because they are old. They might be the best person, but we never get the best person for president. The two-party system is broke, so age limit on presidency doesn't really matter. They'll find some other garbage person to put up there that'll keep the status quo going. But screw this 30 plus years in Congress nonsense. Term limits shift power away from elected officials and gives it to the lobbyists, who, having no term limits, will have the experience, connections, and tenure to control and manipulate all the fresh young Congress people coming through the revolving door. Maybe 70 and it should apply to Congress. We should not have people with dementia running the country. It's not the dementia I'm worried about. It's the lack of change and moving forward with the time technology. Someone who doesn't understand the basics of the internet should not be writing laws on it. The president isn't the main problem. The main problem is Congress, then the president. Term limits for everything appointed or elected, including the Supreme Court. I'd set the age limit at 70, but if someone is elected or appointed at 69, their term is a single year. So as an example, the presidency has a term limit of 4 years apiece. Don't change that. Congressional terms are 2 years, so set a limit of 4 to 5 terms-ish. Supreme Court, maybe set terms of 5 years apiece, with a limit of 3 terms. We don't need a government with dynasties of inertia. Eater, I love the responses this is getting. Yay, actual discussion. What we have right now is inherently flawed and undemocratic, with large swaths of our representatives not effectively representing much beyond their own political ideology, and, in various cases, representing their monetary sources rather than their constituents. The above is a pipe dream, of course, but there's got to be something better. Term limits are bad policy that lead to ineffective lawmakers and more power in the hands of lobbyists. They're also inherently undemocratic. I don't know. I don't like that we're run by a bunch of fossils either, but I don't know if a hard limit at an arbitrary age for all people is really going to work out in reality. Absolutely. Limit 4 terms in the House, 2 terms in the Senate. If you're running for president, you must be 65 or younger when your term starts to be eligible. Add in ranked choice, public finding of elections with 0 private donations allowed. Reform the Senate so that states are guaranteed to senators but can up to 10 based on population. Deleted. Stovepipe hat optional. No, it's not age. It's corruption. Get rid of privately funded campaigns and lobbying. Period. End of discussion. This shit is just a distraction every time it's brought up to get the age brackets pissed at each other. Thank you. I'm really surprised by how many people are answering yes. As it stands now, younger candidates with less name recognition rely more on how much private funding their campaign gets, i.e. corruption. It's neither liberal nor progressive to support ageism. If you want to fix politics, criminalize accepting special interest money, criminalize financial investment above and beyond 401k's IRS index funds during terms, institute term limits, decrease the election cycle to a 6-month period, and mandate 100% transparency in existing political beliefs, financial investments, and political goals. Further, like any job, a mid-year and annual review are required. You must report to the voters why you failed in a campaign promise, and how you can resolve that moving forward. Finally, bi-weekly interviews are required, with questions fielded not from the press exclusively but from voters. Gotta be at least 35 to be president. Seems absurd we don't have an end cap. I am absolutely astonished at the number of people who are saying yes. The best person for the job should be in that position, regardless of age. Basically, there are people that didn't like the results of the last few elections. Their answer, like the good authoritarians that they are, is to change the rules until they get the results they want. This is as much about disenfranchising voters as the states that pass laws making harder for people to vote.